Thank you, ma'am, for your very enlightening reflection on the issue. It is indeed very important to remember that patriarchy as an institution is not just about pure dominance, but it also rests very comfortably on the consent of a large section of women. I'd next like to invite Professor A.K. Ramakrishnan to deliver his talk on the
Professor Janaki, Nair, dear friends. First of all, I should thank the SSS counselors for inviting me here. This, you know, is an important issue, most important for Kerala at this moment, because it is in a way affecting the social and political life of this state. It may have implications for national politics, etc., but that's something that has to be seen. When the judgment came from the Supreme Court, the debates around that was mainly about the crux of the matter on which the Young Lawyers Collective has gone to the court. That's on the rights of women to worship, particularly in the age of menstruation. Some of the best political commentators in the Malayalam media has very rightly stressed on the most important points in the judgment on the constitutional morality. And I should emphasize on that because that's often discussed, whether it is the social or the popular morality that should prevail, or the constitutional morality, or is it an either-or question to that extent, as was already mentioned here, how that social and the political merge together. When Ambedkar was mentioning about this conflict between the popular or the social morality, the generally accepted value system, and constitutional morality, what he was stressing upon was that if you accept the popular, then all the injustices, the caste system, the gender hierarchy, everything that is given to us has to be accepted. The Brahminical order has to be accepted. And writing the constitution itself is a process against that. And therefore, it's a creation of a new morality, new ways of conducting political and social matters. And therefore, when the majority judgment invokes Ambedkar in this sense, it's an important assertion that constitutional morality is something that may sometimes go against the accepted social morality, but it is a requirement to have a civil society, to have rights, to have a political community that has some forward-looking social order in mind. Ambedkar was very, significantly mentioning the point here that Constitution has a function of teaching society the pedagogical function of the Constitution, of what sense of justice is, what is the new value system is. And therefore, that kind of a Supreme Court order, therefore, or any legal measure from the very drafting of the Constitution onwards is a way of teaching a society what, in our social order, what is the meaning of justice. It is not acceptance of what is there, but thinking about what ought to be the nature of our society and what has to be changed. And in that sense, that aspect of the judgment on Sabarimala from the Supreme Court is very significant, I think. The second important thing, particularly in the debates in Kerala, much of it is now moving away from the question of women's entry into Sabarimala. It's much more political in the party or ideological lines, particularly dominated by, to a large extent, by the right wing. And it's not that they dominate all the figures who come there, but they set the agenda. And that's a significant thing to look into, and a very important moment in Kerala's political history as well, because you know that the right wing in Kerala did not, particularly the far right, has not gotten many votes, as you know. The percentage varies from 5 to the maximum. In some places it was 14% of the votes. But they are, for the first time in Kerala's political history, setting particular kind of political agenda for the state, which has to be looked into as a serious matter. The parallel to this kind of domination, there is an intellectual section which did not get enough prominence in the media, electronic especially, are also coming to the fore. Particularly the Malaya community, the Adivasi community, the Dalit intellectuals, who were all there, who were writing, who were famous, but they are getting more airtime now, and more space in the public. That's mainly because a new way of thinking about politics is also coming parallel to this dominant narrative that is set by the far right. And that narrative, for the first time in Kerala's history, in a way, is coalescing forces, both from within the left, the conventional left, I should say, and the Dalit and Adivasi communities, and the voices of feminist scholars, all of them coming and talking about certain things about Kerala society and politics in somewhat a manner in which the contradictions among themselves are not the prominent thing that comes out. Rather than the agreement between them is what comes out in this debate. And which usually doesn't happen, because Dalit community especially, and the very prominent Dalit intellectuals, have always been an ardent critique of the Brahminical assertion of the left parties and the hyper-masculinity that was mentioned by the feminist scholars, activists and others. Now you see the feminists, Dalit and conventional left leadership coming together and speaking about the social reform movement, speaking against Brahminism, speaking about the requirement of different castes and genders to have a place in Kerala society, and a new way of thinking about Kerala society is also discussed. To what extent that makes a dent in the far-right determined agenda is another thing, but it's an important occasion in that sense, and that has to be really noted, and that opportunity has to be utilized to the maximum benefit of having different communities participating in the political debate. One very prominent thing that I've noticed is that even though you see from the Nair Service Society, the Yogakshema Sabha, the Ayyappa Seva Sangham, and all these people mobilizing women on the streets, you have seen thousands of them coming to the streets against the Supreme Court order. But if you look at them from the television pictures, etc., you can see what I see also is that the younger generation of women are not there in large numbers. And that should be a kind of salute to your generation. You cannot see them, except few of them who are ardent supporters of the far right. Divide according to the generation age and the kind of values they actually hold dear to themselves. And that conflict is a very significant conflict. And therefore, one cannot say in a general sense that women of Kerala are talking about the Sabarimala issue like this or like this. There's very different voices coming. This is true with the feminist activists, this is true with Dalit feminists, and many others. You could see that there are empty number of voices coming, and as I've told you earlier, that division between the far right and the new politics of coming together is also making its presence felt. In this occasion of polarization, what the right wing says in setting the agenda is the utilization of the term the bhakta or the devotee. It's as if it is their monopoly. The devotee as a far-right entity. And they were successful in doing that because the media repeats that even if they attack journalists, even if they create problems, throw stones, but they are called the devotee. The other voice of the devotees are not to be seen in public, particularly from women. Why is it so? One obvious reason is that what is there for them to come to the streets? Actually, the judgment was in favor of them, and so why should they come? But it has come to such a level now that if you do not show the strength of people on the road, the visibility of that kind of a section of people, and which is a large section, I should think, this kind of dominance of the discourse from the far right would stay for long. And you have seen how sloganeering was replaced by the right wing by Nama Japa. This is what Jap. So you just recite Swami Sharanamayyappa and things like that. So as if that is not slogan. the way they speak, the way they throw stones, the way they, the very body politic of it, in whatever way that is being shown, that hypermasculinity fully in our view there. When that is happening, the distinction between what is political and what is this devotion, when that is being blurred by the right wing in the discourse, the journalistic community, etc., who has by and large been in a way supporting the cause of the right of women to enter Sabarimala in general, except one or two TV channels in Kerala. But otherwise there is a kind of general agreement with the Supreme Court order. But even then, they make the mistake of calling them as the devotees. And as if some of these women who try to enter are not devotees. One of my friends went there, who is a devotee of Bindu. And the kind of things that she has to suffer. And every single woman who tried to enter of that age between 10 and 50, their houses have been attacked, their jobs are under threat, and you could see that their security is a big issue. And the attachment of this devotee to the right wing denies these women their agency, as if they are activists. Even the minister mentioned like that. Today also here. Even though the chief minister has been very strong in stating this politics that I mentioned earlier, but there are voices here and there that in a way do not make these distinctions properly. So what is important is to have, you call something by its name, rather than mixing up Nama Japa with domineering, etc., and not making that distinction that this is sloganeering, this is for their purpose. One good thing that has happened today is that the BJP chief of Kerala, Sridharan Pillai, stated in their own meeting, which was leaked out by from within the party, it seems, in the Yuva Morcha meeting, it was stated that we have been leading the agitation, not the Bhakta, not the devotee. And we were successful, and this was a golden opportunity. That's what the word that he has used. And everybody fell in line, not in the Congress and others. So it's now a fight between us and the government. He doesn't bother about the Supreme Court at all. He is an advocate himself, a very well-known criminal lawyer in Kerala. And they are already, even if there is a review petition, large number of review petitions in the Supreme Court, even if that goes against them, that is, if there is a reinstatement of the judgment, even then they are ready to go forward, challenging the Supreme Court verdict. But as a political party, they've been, even though said we will be with the devotees, and therefore the devotees are leading the agitation against women's entry. But now they've clear that pronunciations have come that we as a party has been leading the agitation, and those who have joined have come, and they themselves surrendered to our demands, and now we are in that leading position, they say. And he also said that the Tantri of the Sabarimala temple, the high priest, decided to, his statement has come earlier when women were trying to enter, that I'll lock the doors of the temple and hand over the key to the Pandalam family, which is supposed to be the old Raja, Maharaja family. Not Maharaja, it's a small Raja actually, of a small territory. That kingdom was actually having big debts, and therefore its debts were refinanced by the Travancore Maharajas, and then therefore that family went bankrupt. But they still have certain kind of linkages with Sabarimala in its rituals. So when the Tantri said that, today Advocate Sridharan Pillai was saying that his declaration of closing down the temple doors was taken by consulting me, he said. So this is about ritual in Sabarimala. That if women enters, all the tradition would be broken, etc. But the priest decided to close it with the consultation of the leader of the far-right political party. Nothing to do with tradition or ritual there. And as you've been suggesting how tradition has been invented, and in Sabarimala's case there is a whole lot of them. In this case, it's a new kind of tradition that is being established. The context is also very important, apart from the national context. Kerala's own context, the floods, people of various religions and castes coming together, which was a very significant moment in recent Kerala's history of the unity of the people. When that was happening, it was the BJP which actually lost out. Their campaigns not to deposit funds in Chief Minister's Relief Fund, their campaigns with the central government to stop financing the Kerala government, all those things were mocked by people at that point of time. And, it saddened many people who actually agreed with them to an extent. So the gap was very little for them to enter into Kerala's politics with the new leadership of Advocate Sridharan Pillai coming to the fore and so on. So that's precisely why the Sabarimala judgment's opportunity was utilized to a very great extent, to have that kind of inroads into the Kerala society, and more divisiveness and all kinds of things. That is the immediate context. If you listen to the debates again, where is it going now? If this is the situation, it's going to be, somewhere they are waiting for the Supreme Court review petitions to be decided. And why women should not even a single woman of this between 10 and 50 should not enter, that kind of position was taken. That is to convince the court that this tradition is not broken, at least now. if it's broken, then the court can always say that our judgment stands. But they see an opportunity in not allowing women there, and that's why the physical kind of thing and the fact of blood and urine and others by Rahul Ishwar and others, all kinds of things that you've seen now. That reminds me of the 1857 feminist movement in Chicago, when for equal pay for equal rights, and they were marching, men from above were peeing on them down below to oppose those kinds of demands. And a youngster like Rahul was utilizing this same kind of thing, but here to defy the temple, to break the tradition. Nobody does this in a temple. But he is the most important protector of the tradition. And why such figures are given so much opportunity to discuss about an important matter like this. And you see the way patriarchy functions now. The Tandri family, of which he is a member, the elder is saying now that he does not belong to our family, because his mother, who belongs to the family, is married to a man from another family, so he belongs to that family. So patriarchy comes back and beats him like anything, but he's still that kind of super masculine character. And it's almost like a film figure now. About the alternate discourse that I've mentioned, there's always that stress on the reform tradition. Reform tradition is meant. You see, when the Yogaksema Sabha among the Nambodiris, the movement occurred, or among the Muslims, the reform movement occurred, Wakamawali and others. If you have to have caste or religious issue to be raised in the public, one of the major things that they have to address was the women's question. And that's why the Nambudiri literature, or as all of you know, is from the kitchen to the center stage, and those kinds of dramas being played by the Nambudiri reformers. And these kinds of issues have been coming up. I was researching with a friend of mine in the 1980s on some aspects of women's movement in the Kerala context. And I was just looking at where can I find the use of the word feminism for the first time in Malayalam. It was a difficult thing, and people have to inquire further. But I've stopped by the late 1920s in Wakam Maulavi's writing. His publication, Deepika as it is called, had the use of feminism. In English also he used feminism. Stri Swatantravadan was his translation. Why was the Maulavi interested in feminism? Reform movement of that kind, at that time, whatever they take beyond that, but they are informed, right, because there was Egyptian feminist movement in the 20s and so on and so forth. You could see that the gender caste or gender religion issues were addressed together in the tradition. now when the Supreme Court judgment is talking about the question of women entering the temple, why Dalits and Adivasis and others coming to the and coming and defending that requirement. And there is that opportunity of now various kinds of intersections coming together so that alternate politics can be thought about. The most important part of this was the Adivasi assertion, particularly by the Malay areas, claiming their tradition in Sabarimala, how the Brahminical forces have taken it away. And it's not a long past or anything of that sort, thoroughly irretrievable kind of thing. So even some of the older generation even remembers how their rituals on the main idol of Sabarimala, Ayyappan, the honey that was offered instead of ghee or what is it, Nair, what the Brahminical pujaris do. Earlier, those kinds of things were done by the Malay area community who lives in these hills, in the Sabarimala region. And P.K. Sajeev and many others have raised these kinds of questions also to the fore. And so that what tradition are you going to defend now is an important question. And even if the government agrees for keeping the law and order intact on some tradition to be respected, etc., there's no possibility of clear, stating what tradition that the government will be going to allow, because the tradition itself is being challenged thoroughly, which is a very significant thing to happen. The voices that have not been in the fore are now being therefore heard, which is an extremely significant thing. And I'll just mention one thing and stop. At least in the reform movement of the early part of the 20th century, late 19th century, etc., why in your own community the reform should come, etc. That argument, it is an important argument, but as if nobody else, said anything about reforms in another community in the past. See, one example I'll tell you is Sahodaran Ayyappan. His name is also Ayyappan. Sahodaran Ayyappan is an ardent non-believer, a rationalist, one of the significant figures of the rationalist movement in Kerala. And he is always proud to say that he is an important shishya of Narayana Guru, a Hindu sannyasi. No problem. And Narayana Guru had great respect for him as a young shishya. When Narayana Guru stated that there is one caste, one religion and one God for everybody, Sahodaran Ayyappan's slogan was, no caste, no religion, no God. That was his slogan, imitating Narayana Guru. But then people asked Narayana Guru, why is he your favored shishya? He said, it's not about what he says, it's about what he does. That is important. And Sahodaran Ayyappan was called Polayan Ayyappan because he took up the case of of the untouchables, even while the whole movement of Narayana Guru was among the Iravas in the middle, or down the middle. Beyond that, there are people you have to address. So those questions were raised in a big manner. And if believers and non-believers, that kind of total opposition that is being made out, even that was in a way amicably talked about. And this is true with M.C. Joseph's interaction with Narayana Guru and his disciples. It's true with many others of that time. And when Iyengali was leading that major agitation and his call for strike of the paddy field workers, the Dalit workers, if Dalit children are not allowed in the public schools, then this is what we are going to do. And it yielded some results. It took a long time, even after the law was passed by the Travancore government for entry of Dalit children to school. But you could see that all of them had some kind of interaction with each other. Talking about, if you read Vakamaulavi, he was always talking about how the Yogaksema Sabha was organizing, the youngsters there was organizing. And he said that the Muslim youth has a lot to learn from those kinds of things. When there is a movement, there is a give and take that is happening. And therefore, when this kind of an alternate discourse is put forward, there's enough scope for the conventional left in Kerala to rethink many of their own Brahminical assumptions, which is very important. And also for different groups and different sets of agencies that have come up in a strong manner, both in the intellectual and political sense, for them to recognize the significance of opening some windows to other sets of movements so that there is some event that is possible. So at least I'm finding some hope in these discourses developing, whether they will be substantially, politically articulated in later months and years is something that we have to wait and see. Thank you very much for that.